Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Onside Kick Show. Today, as you can see, well, you actually can see, there is visuals to this, which is pretty cool. So I'm joined by Mr. Gavin Lemke. We're doing our over the winter break special via Zoom. Hope you guys enjoy. How you feeling today, Gavin?
Man, I'm feeling good, bro. That holiday feels nice. I'm getting a lot of sleep. Feels good, man. I'm ready for Christmas. Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays indeed. See, what's nice about Hanukkah is that sometimes it rolls around before Christmas, so I get to celebrate a little bit. But with that being said, that was during my finals week, so haven't exchanged any presents yet. We're doing that in a couple days. So this year I'm celebrating the same time as you. So very, very excited for just the holiday season in general. New Year's, all that. Um, so before we get into today's episode, we have questions every week. Obviously, a lot of you guys always hit me up and ask if you want to say something on the show or you want to call in. So whenever we have an episode, we'll put out a poll on the Instagram at Onside Kick Show. Go peep that. You can leave a question there, and you can be featured on the show. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start off with some trivia today. So I hope that we'll be able to get this one. Let's see. So today is December 22nd, 2023, almost to January. The question from fantasyindex.com is, who are the only two wide receivers in NFL history who have gone over 100 yards in a Super Bowl game, then later in their career played for the team that they had the 100-yard game against? Now, it does say, oddly, these players, the only two of them, they had their 100-yard games while playing against each other in the Super Bowl. And they both also
Oh,
played for
wow.
other teams in their career and are both retired. So, once again, only two wide receivers in NFL history who've gone over 100 yards in the Super Bowl, then later played for the team that they had the 100-yard game against in the Super Bowl.
I'm bamboozled right now, man. I'm trying to think of like legendary wide receivers who had a crazy game in the Super Bowl. I'm thinking like Jerry Rice, but I don't know, man. My NFL knowledge doesn't go back that far to, who was traded where, who was playing in what Super Bowl. Maybe like now Jerry Rice and Michael Irvin couldn't have played in the same Super Bowl.
I mean, I'm trying to think. You think 49ers Cowboys had something, but Michael Irvin didn't play for anybody else but the Cowboys.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, this is a tough question. I'm trying to think in recent years. I know Odell had 100 yards playing against the Bengals, but then he went to the Ravens. Um, I know in 2016, none of those Patriots wide receivers ever left their team. They just played for the Patriots, it seemed like their whole career. Um, couldn't have been Julio Jones. Um,
Right. My first thought was like Edelman and Julio Jones, but that they didn't
mhm,
haven't played for the opposite teams. So I'm looking through the Super Bowl winners right now.
mhm.
So I mean, you had Kansas City. Well, I'll say the matchup. So you had Kansas City versus Philly. You had Rams versus Bengals. You had the Bucks versus uh, Chiefs. Chiefs versus Niners. Patriots versus Rams. Eagles versus Patriots. Patriots, Falcons, Broncos, Panthers, Patriots, Seahawks, Seahawks, Broncos. When we get further than that, it's like, huh. I mean, I would guess that this is an older player, like before the 2000s.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I'm trying to see if San Francisco played like the Raiders, maybe. Maybe Jerry Rice then went to the Raiders and had 100 yards.
And this player is retired. So I was thinking, the Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl, that was a high scoring game. It was super exciting. Probably had a couple 100 yard receivers, but none of the guys that played in that game have retired at this point.
Right.
Um, you can pretty much eliminate a game like Seahawks Broncos where it was 43-8. Definitely not a 100 yard receiver on the Broncos in that year. Um, Ravens Niners. I'm trying to think. That was somewhat a high scoring game, but I don't know if I could name one wide receiver on either team. Maybe like
Well,
Jacoby Jones.
you know who was on that team was Randy Moss. Was on the Niners that year.
Was he?
He was, yeah. It was Randy Moss, and then I think Anquan Bolden was also there. Maybe he was on the Ravens at that point, but yeah, Randy Moss was on the Niners team. I'm pretty sure.
Would Randy? I feel like I would remember if Randy Moss had a 100-yard receiving game in a Super Bowl like
Well,
in my lifetime.
he didn't have it there, but per the question, they've gone over
Oh,
100 yards when they were playing each other in that Super Bowl. Then they played for the team that they were against. So was there a Patriots 49ers that was earlier?
nah, because when Randy Moss was on the Patriots was like 2006 or something, and the Niners weren't good in that era.
Man.
Where else did Randy Moss play? The Raiders?
Yeah, he played. I mean, he played the Raiders. He played on the Titans for a little bit. They didn't go to the Super
Neither
Bowl
of those
anytime.
teams were
So,
ever
yeah.
good.
I want to say he made it to the Bengals at some point. I don't know. Yeah, I'm looking back. I mean, Pittsburgh, Seattle.
Ooh, like Baldwin?
Well, this was before. This was
Oh, this is what you're
2006.
talking. Okay, yeah.
So I'm thinking,
You're going
Niners,
way back in
Giants,
history.
New England. Yeah, dude, this is such a tough question. Receivers who switch teams.
Yeah, I mean Larry Fitzgerald never switched teams.
Right.
Um, Maybe like a Greg Jennings, like a Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, I was thinking Jordy, but he didn't make it to the. Well, okay. Packers play the Raiders. So they went over 100 yards in the Super Bowl later in their career. They played. That's so. I
I
don't
could see
know.
that happening. Yeah, that just takes. It's gonna be a guess for me. Like I'm not gonna come up with this answer. It's gonna be a guess.
Yeah. I feel like maybe something with Randy Moss. Like maybe. But aside from that, I mean,
That might be too obvious.
Patriots, you got to think like there's somebody just because they've been to so many Super Bowls. I was also thinking like
Ooh,
Pittsburgh, maybe.
ooh. Gronk. Did Gronk ever have a 100-yard receiving game in a Super Bowl?
I'm sure he did, but then he would have only played on the Bucks after. So did they play the Bucks in any Super Bowl? And I do not
Ooh,
believe they did.
okay. This is a tough question.
Yeah, man. Uh, oh God, I'm trying to think. Tampa Bay, Oakland. Maybe like I know Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce, the Rams guys. They went somewhere else.
hmm
Denver, Green Bay. I have no idea, man. This thing is stumping me. Um, do we?
I feel like to be smart, I feel like we should throw a Patriot in there
Yeah.
just because
I'm gonna
some
say
of them bounce around.
I'm gonna say Randy Moss is in there somehow, and the other guy. I don't know. Maybe Anquan Bolden. Yeah, I think he was on the Ravens that year.
He was.
So I'm gonna say like Randy Moss and Anquan Bolden. I guess.
Did they play against you? Did Randy Moss ever play in a Super Bowl?
Yeah. He played multiple Super Bowls with the Patriots, and then he was in that one with the Niners. And then I think Anquan Bolden also played for the Niners. So I'm gonna say like Randy Moss, Anquan Bolden.
You said Randy Moss and Anquan Bolden.
Yeah,
I'll rock with that.
we rock
Your
with
guess
that.
is about
Okay.
as good as mine at this
I
point.
would be shocked if we got Randy Moss. Wouldn't be surprised if we got. All right, you ready? Ready for the answer?
Yeah, I'm taking a peek. Anquan Bolden.
Yo, I got one. I got one. That was 100% luck.
Hey, that was a good
Michael
guess.
Crabtree and Anquan Bolden.
Michael Crabtree, man. I took a look at that game
Jeez.
too, the Niners Ravens game, and I was like, who were those receivers? Like I remember that being a good game, but who were those receivers? Michael Crabtree just slipped my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I knew he was playing there, but I didn't think he. I get. Did he then play for the Ravens? Crabtree
I'm sure
then.
it was a guy. He bounced around.
Yeah, he did sign with Baltimore in the offseason. I forgot about that. And then.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. So and then Bolden in the Super Bowl went over 100. That's crazy. He was like
That's
34 or something.
That's awesome. I love Anquan Bolden. He was a Detroit Lion for a little bit. He's one of the
Yeah.
best like run after the catch guys uh in the history of the league. He's a beast.
He's one of the best wide receivers in the history of the league, honestly. He's super underrated. One of these weeks, maybe we'll feature him in a flashback. But wow, okay. So Michael Crabtree and Anquan Bolden, when Baltimore beat San Francisco in the Super Bowl, they both went over 100 yards. Bolden later ended up at San Fran, and then yeah, Crabtree went to Baltimore. That is so strange. All right, fantasy index. I mean, still like really difficult questions, but
Yeah.
at
They
least it's
continue to
nothing about
stump us.
headbands.
Yeah, that was bogus. They continue to stump us though. I
That is
appreciate
true.
these trivia questions. These are well thought out. They make me think. They make my brain get turned. I got to reach deep into the files of my NFL knowledge. So
Yeah.
I thank them for that.
A lot of paperwork, scrolling through old files, those long cabinets you pull out, look through the files,
Yeah, my brain's
mentally.
kind of like SpongeBob's brain.
Well, Dirty Dan, we're going to keep going here. And let's go ahead and talk about some playoff teams. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of teams that have really close records. Mainly in, well, I was going to say mainly in the AFC, but there's a lot of NFC teams now that are really close to record too. So this is a really competitive year for football. I would say some really tight divisions that could go either way. You got the AFC West. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs, but Broncos 2 games behind with the division, with the win up on them. Raiders are still lurking at 6-8. Chargers, I think we can finally lay to rest now that Herbert is gone.
Yeah.
And you got the AFC South. You got 3 teams, 8-6: Jags, Colts, Texans, and Titans at 5-9. AFC North is tight. Then you go to the NFC West, Niners 11-3, yeah, but then you got Rams 8-7, Seahawks 7-7, NFC East, and then the NFC South. A lot of bad teams there that may sneak into the playoffs. So I don't know, man. What do you think? You have some frauds. You have some potential real contenders. What do you think?
One thing I just kind of want to highlight coming off that Rams Saints game last night. If the Saints would have won, they would have been like almost a sure thing to make the playoffs, and the Lions would have clinched had the Saints won last night.
Mm,
Now, unfortunately, the Rams kind of handled them the whole game. The scoreboard doesn't really go to show what kind of game it was. Never really in question for the Rams. Stafford was slinging it like he does late in the season, and the Rams won that game. I think it was 28 to 22 or something, 28-20.
yeah, I
Uh
think it was 30-22.
yeah. But the way that sets up the playoff picture at this point, they got the Lions at the 3 seed and the Rams at the 6 seed, meaning that if the season were to end today, Matthew Stafford and the Rams would come into Ford Field for a wild card playoff game playing against the Detroit Lions, and like I can't imagine it. Like,
Wow.
you think a team like the Lions, you think that we've found every heartbreaking way to lose. We've lost in every fashion possible, but this, if Stafford comes home and beats us in the first round of the playoffs, we've reached a new low in Detroit. But I don't know. I don't want to speak it into existence or anything. I'm acknowledging it. I understand that it's there, so no one come at me about that. I understand it. I love Stafford, but it's just it's the worst possibility. When you're rolling like the Lions are right now, it's the last team that you want to see in the playoffs. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can already see that narrative as a possibility, but just to give you some reassurance, it is also Jared Goff revenge game, right? Rams kind of gave up on him in favor of Stafford, so maybe he's got some fire in him.
Hmm.
Jared Goff had a lot of success in LA, but ultimately they wanted to upgrade, and it worked out with Stafford. They got their Super Bowl ring. It was a mutually beneficial trade, I would
It
say.
worked out great for both teams.
Yeah,
It worked out amazing.
unless Stafford knocks you guys out of the playoffs here, which would be tragic. And you know what? I will touch on one thing you said. You found a way to lose in every heartbreaking way imaginable. I feel you. I've seen a lot of games where the refs screw you over, so I'm not going
Hmm.
to necessarily disagree with you on that. But until you get beat by Nick Foles with a double doink to end your 12-4 Coach of the Year, Monsters of the Midway season, or your receiver drops a Hail Mary on a must-win game to
Okay,
lose.
drop. He was lucky that it just fell into his lap. I don't think that was a drop.
Darnell, you got to catch that, man. I'm just
Also, you
saying
want to
that
talk about
I've experienced my fair share of heartbreak too. So
yeah, I'm just you want to talk about a double doink. I think the singular doink that happened, I think last year, or was it last year or the year before with the Justin Tucker
the
66-yard field
65,
goal?
yeah, uh
I think that's even worse than the double
huh,
doink. I know it wasn't the playoffs or anything, but we
yeah,
had a chance to beat a good team. Our record would have been pretty solid at that point, and yeah, you saw what happened.
yeah. That is tough. I mean, Justin Tucker, he just wanted it more, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the Rams looking really nice. Really, the key this year has been Stafford because I mean, they talked about this on the game last night, but yeah, coming into the season, everybody was like, okay, well, the Rams, all they did was lose players in the offseason. They got a
Hmm.
couple late round picks, like, oh, they got this Puka Nakua guy, fifth
Yeah,
rounder. We'll see how good he is. You know, they didn't really have a team. Then, yeah, Puka Nakua, who's outplayed Cooper Cup this year. You have some studs on the back end of the defense. Like Byron Young has been a really good young guy. Aaron Donald is still there, obviously, but that's the one guy there. Ernest Jones, the linebacker, is having a great season. He's a stud. You have a lot of really good pieces in the secondary. Akello Witherspoon, former 49ers corner, he's having a good year. Jordan Fuller's a good safety. They have a lot of pieces on defense. It's pretty young. But the offense, Kyron Williams, same thing. He was on their team last year, got like 7 carries. This year, he's got 1,000 yards. Is leading the league in rush yards per game, 96 currently. So the offense is going. Stafford is having a great year. He's not turning over the ball as much, especially in the last 6 games. He's had almost a perfect passer rating.
yeah,
Um, so we were talking about this team just rebuilding and starting over, and now they may be making a run in the playoffs.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see who they match up against right now, because I don't know. Looking at this schedule or looking at this playoff picture, it's hard to see a way that they don't play the Lions. And that scares me just seeing the way that Stafford's throwing the football right now. They could win a shootout. I understand their defense has been playing better as of late, but it's still not a top 12 defense in the league. And even with Aaron Donald, and I think that they're gonna end up in a shootout game in the playoffs. You look at maybe Philly. They might play Philly. Maybe if Dallas loses another game, they could run into Dallas in the first round, but I think my worst nightmare may come true. We might end up playing the Rams in the first week, and I'm scared of Stafford. Honestly, I'm scared.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: Lions matched up against the Vikings. Yeah, it's a tough division game, but you guys should be able to take care of business. Meanwhile, Dallas on the road against Miami, pretty good team, really good offense versus really good defense. So if that goes south, right, you can see the Dolphins win. Let's say
Mhm.
the Eagles drop one to the Giants, then all of a sudden Lions are the 2 seed behind the Niners, and really the Niners isn't a lock. They're playing the Ravens too. I could see them dropping that one.
Yeah,
So let's say the Ravens win that one. Lions take this one. Lions are tied for the number 1 seed. Now, Niners having a 5-0 division record. That's you're not gonna be able to beat that really. But there's definitely a scenario where the Lions get the 2 seed, and if the Rams keep winning, then maybe they'll end up higher than a 6 seed. But I think there still is a lot of time left to determine. One thing's for sure is that I think whoever wins the NFC South is gonna have a rough time in the start of the playoffs. Let's talk about that for a second because you got the Falcons 6-8 currently out of the picture. They are taking on the Colts this week at home, so winnable but tough game. Saints 7-8 lost a lot of really tough close ones this year. Even though it was a one-score game last night, you're right. They absolutely dominated them. The Rams dominated the Saints. But they're 7-8. They're one game behind the division, and then you got the Bucks, who are 7-7. They've beaten some really good teams and lost to some really bad teams. But they're 3-1 in the division, and they're taking on Jaguars without Trevor Lawrence this week. So, what do you think? How far do you think Well, first of all, who do you think is going to win the NFC South? And second of all, how far do you think they would go in the playoffs?
I think right now it's going to be the Bucks. I just love the way Baker Mayfield's playing. He's really stepped into that role. I think he had a perfect passer rating last week. It was really impressive. But I don't really see him getting out of the first round, to be honest. They would run into a team like Dallas or like Philly, or they could even run into San Francisco, and I don't think they stand a chance against any of those teams. The NFC is pretty top heavy. Um, But yeah, I mean, I think whatever teams don't make the playoffs out of the NFC South, I think all those coaches are getting fired. I don't know if you watched the game last night, but Dennis Allen to end the first half when he went for it on 4th and 5 from like his own 45, I was like, "What are you doing?" It's almost like they wanted to lose the game. Just horrible coaching jobs, kind of all around in that division. I think the three teams that don't make the playoffs, I think they're those coaches are out.
Yeah, I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. I don't know why Dennis Allen is a head coach. I don't think he's really done anything to prove that he should continue to be the head coach. I believe he's a defensive guy. So I don't know how much of the choice it was for him to go on fourth, but I agree. Whoever was calling that was so dumb. Now, they would have had that first if Olave didn't drop the pass right before. He had a good game, but a rare drop
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
But yeah, Dennis Allen, I don't know really what he's doing. The Saints are always competitive. They have a good roster, but they should be so much better. And blame it on Derek Carr if you want. I think that's a fair assumption, but I just don't know how you have Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave and Michael Thomas, well, not anymore, and a great O-line, and you're just the epitome of mid. Can't get anything going on offense, and when your defense needs to step up, they're not there. So I completely agree with you on the Bucks too. I actually think the Bucks record really should be better than it is. I mean, I think the only game where they really got handled, the Lions game was pretty bad. They had a tough loss to the Eagles. Their offense isn't electric, but they've lost a lot of really close games and won a lot of really close games. Niners only a 2-score game. Texans, they lost by 2 points. That was a 39-37 shootout. That was like the C.J. Stroud breakout game. They lost to the Falcons earlier by 3. So I think it's really just consistency for them. But they're starting to heat up. They put 29 on the Falcons. They took care of the Panthers. They destroyed the Packers. Yeah, so overall, Buccaneers, they got a shot. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think, like you said, NFC's really top heavy. They play any of these top teams, it might be rough. Let's go over to the AFC because the Pittsburgh Steelers are super banged up, right? They would like to have Kenny Pickett back instead of Mitch Trubisky. They're sitting at 7-7. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. And they're still 3-1 in the division. The Bengals are 8-6, and the Bengals are taking on the Steelers this week. So whoever wins this game, I mean, this is a huge game. The Steelers win, they're 8-7, they're third in the division. Bengals are 0-5 in division games.
Yep.
I mean, you got a lot of Browns are in there too. What do you make of the NFC North?
Well, I'm gonna go Steelers this weekend. I think Mason Rudolph's starting, and you put Rudolph in on Christmas weekend. It's pretty much a lock, in my opinion.
That's a good point. Yeah,
Oh, no, yeah, but it's the best division, man. It's the best division, like historically in football. I love watching it. I think, obviously the Ravens have clinched, essentially. I like them this week. I like the Steelers as well, not just because of the Rudolph thing. I think Jake Browning cannot continue to do what he's done. It's been super impressive watching him kind of carry that offense, but I don't know, man. The dump downs, I just don't think it's going to work on the Steelers defense. I think they kind of got this one in the bag.
yeah, I agree with you there. Considering the Bengals haven't actually won a division game yet, there's still some kinks they got to work out. So, yeah, and then this would be a big win for the Steelers too, because you get this game and you get one more, and then you can hold on to that never lost, undefeated record. So. I think Mike Tomlin tied. There was one year. It was Duck Hodges. Remember that?
No.
Duck Hodges. Oh my gosh, this guy. I think that was the year where they had Rudolph get hit in the head by Myles
Oh,
Garrett.
man.
I'm pretty sure because there was a guy who was playing quarterback with him, Duck Hodges. Yeah, you don't even know who that is, but he won a couple games for the Steelers, and I think they went like 8-8 just
Good for him.
before they had the record. Yeah, if you don't know the
Yeah.
Duck Hodges mania, definitely look that up because that was what a time to be alive.
I mean, I got a question for you. Do you think after this season, if Mike Tomlin has his first losing record as a head coach, you think he's on the hot seat?
I'm gonna look into the camera for that. I feel like Stephen A. Firing Mike Tomlin would be the worst decision in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise.
Mm-hmm.
If he has a losing season, you gotta just pretend like it didn't happen. Because one, look at their roster, look at their division, and two, that's the only time. I mean, that would be Lovie Smith syndrome. They fired
Yeah.
Lovie Smith after a 10-6 record. Yeah, he wasn't getting into the playoffs that often, so maybe you could say it's a little different. But at the end of the day, like the only reason the Steelers are as good as they are is because of Mike Tomlin. He's a motivator, whether it's offensive or defensive. I mean, look at all the personality that he had to put in the locker room at one point. He had Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Ben Roethlisberger, even like Juju Smith-Schuster. He's had a lot of divas in his
Yeah.
time, and he's been able to contain them and put up winning numbers. And now you still got Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, who don't really want to play football for the Steelers. When your quarterback is Kenny Pickett, I guess I don't really blame him. But
Well, that's what I'm
no,
saying. I
there's no
mean,
way
you're
you should
kind of
fire him.
talking like the culture that Mike Tomlin established. I'm wondering, is that kind of on the line in this game? Like you mentioned, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, doesn't really look like they want to be playing football there. They're under their third string quarterback. I don't know. I'm worried about the Pittsburgh Steelers culture, which I've been a fan of since Mike Tomlin's been there.
That is a good point. That is a good point. If they keep having all these personalities in the locker room, they had Claypool too. They had a bunch of guys. Like, yeah, then maybe it is time for a change. But let's just say this: if Mike Tomlin becomes available, I'm selling the rights to my firstborn child so that the Bears hire him as a head coach, because that is probably, arguably, the greatest coach we've seen since, I don't know, 2000 or whatever. Just
Yeah.
besides Belichick, I mean, that might be the best coach in the league. Andy Reid's up there, but Mike Tomlin, you got to give him his flowers. There's no way this team should be 4-1 in the division right now. No way they should be competing for a playoff spot with all the injuries and lack of talent they have, and they are because of good coaching. What about the AFC South here? Highly competitive division. You got the 3 8-6 teams. What do you think is going to happen there?
Uh, Man, I mean it's two pretty big games with the Colts and the Falcons, and then the Texans and the Browns. From what I'm hearing, I don't think Stroud's playing this week. In the Texans Browns game, and I'm big on the Browns this year, so unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to chalk that up as a Texans loss, which would push them further out of the playoff picture. And the Colts Falcons game, I think, is gonna be huge. Two teams that are kind of similar this year. Quarterback problems, pretty consistent run game. We'll see how that goes. From what I can tell, I think that's going to be an Atlanta win, which doesn't really do much for the NFC playoff picture. Only really knocks the Colts down a peg, and that would push the Buffalo Bills closer into the playoffs, closer to that 8 seed. So I think honestly, the division winner's gonna get in, and that's gonna be the Jags, and I don't see any other teams making it out of the AFC South.
Yeah, it's funny because I agree with you in principle, but as it stands right now, like the Steelers wouldn't make it, the Bengals wouldn't make it, the Bills wouldn't make it, but the Jags, Colts, and Texans would all make it. Just division record and overall record, just that's how it works out right now. So yeah, you would think, okay, how did the Colts or three total teams in the South make it in over the Bills? But the way that the NFL playoff seeding works, we might see something like that. I agree with that sentiment. We'll see. I mean, yeah, because if the Bucks can take care of business against the Jaguars here, then creates even more problems, right? Because you may or may not have Trevor. I think he's about the same probability as Stroud is for the Texans.
Mhm. It's going to be interesting to see, man. This is going to be a good week of football. Just enjoy it, man. Christmas weekend.
Yep. I agree. Let's do matchups real quick here. Just spend a minute on it. I would say the biggest matchup this week, well, there's two big ones, but I think best seed in the AFC, best seed in the NFC, Niners at home, Monday night versus the Ravens. Who's your pick?
You said that's a Monday night. I thought that was a Sunday game.
I believe that is Monday, 7:15. We got
That
two
got
Monday
flexed.
night games. Actually, three
Oh,
Monday night games. Wow.
wow.
Sorry, not Monday night. We got a Monday 12, a Monday 3:30, and a Monday 7:15. You know why? Because Monday is Christmas.
Yeah.
So
Okay, cool.
Ravens Niners.
That Ravens game got flexed to prime time, which might honestly change my opinion on this. I was gonna go Niners. I was gonna say they were just probably gonna coast through that game, but it's a primetime game. I feel like Lamar might kind of turn it up, and I feel like Brock Purdy, he might show that he's not really built for that. I'm gonna eat my words on that, and Brock Purdy's probably gonna throw for 350 yards, 4 touchdowns. But I like Lamar and the Ravens in this game. They seem to just be able to drive the ball down the field very consistently, chew up a lot of clock, and I think that's what you got to do against the Niners, and obviously stop that offense. But not an easy task.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I'm picking the Ravens here. I think the Ravens are a phenomenal team. The Niners are also a phenomenal team, but touchdown reliant on like the likes of Debo Samuel and all these guys getting open, like a lot of open guys. I think Brock Purdy is operating that offense phenomenally. You couldn't be doing anything better. However, I don't think that he is the only person in this league who would be able to do that. I think there are
Yeah.
other quarterbacks who are more talented, and the way the system is he's set up very nicely. So, he's still really good at like the layered throws, like in coverage. Accuracy is a big thing for him, and he doesn't make a ton of bad decisions. But I think when it comes down to it, yeah, I could see the Ravens stealing the game here on the road. So I agree with you there. I have one more big matchup here. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Dallas playing the Dolphins in Miami. Sunday afternoon game, 3:25 p.m. Tell me what you're thinking.
Man, I wanted to go Dolphins because I thought that they would just air it out. I thought Tua was gonna have one of those games where he throws for like 400 yards. But then I remembered how good that Cowboys defense is with the pass rush. You got Parsons, and then the defensive backs, even the middle linebacker core, like really solid defense. I don't know. I kind of want to say the Cowboys are going to win this game in a shootout, but I don't know. Dak versus Tua is kind of what I'm going off of, and I trust Dak a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the opposite way, but for kind of the same reason. I was thinking, okay, the Cowboys have such a great defense; they're gonna be able to shut down the Miami offense. But I'm thinking like the Miami when they get going. I mean, that's just a great team. I mean, the Jets defense really good, and they handled them last week. So inconsistency is a problem for both of these teams. However, I think when it comes to the Cowboys, I mean, they had a really bad showing against the Bills. They could not stop the run, and the Dolphins pride themselves on not only their pass game but the bounce attack with the running game, and they have two really fast running backs. So
Hmm.
for that reason, I think Miami at home, I think they're going to take care of business. Cowboys still need to show that they can contend with other juggernauts. Because Eagles, I don't really count that. Eagles have looked kind of shaky, and it's a division rival. Commanders kept it good or close with the Eagles both times too. So no discredit to the Eagles. I still think they're getting hated a little bit too much. But both of those teams, I want to see them go up against more contenders like Eagles beat the Bills. They were able to do that. So when it comes to Dolphins Cowboys, I'm going to take the Dolphins, and we'll see. I think, yeah, like you said, shootout should be good. Wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised if this one
Although
went
I'm
either way.
kind of unsure about the status of Tyreek Hill. Do you know if he's playing or not?
Ooh, now that is a good point. As far as I know, he's questionable, and I would be shocked if he missed that game.
Yeah.
Uh, but if he doesn't play, I want to say that they still take the dub, just find a way to win, just because they were able to do it against the Jets last week too. Jalen Waddle had a big game; he stepped right up. So I think Tyreek Hill or not, they find a way, but without Tyreek Hill, it becomes significantly harder. Um, but either way, I'm picking the Dolphins here. Um, we got one room for one more matchup. You have the matchups pulled up?
Uh, no.
Okay. Well, then I'll give you I'll give you one more big one. Um, let's go with the Colts and Falcons. We talked about it. These are two teams that need to win in order to stay in the hunt for the playoffs. Falcons at home, 12 p.m. Sunday game. What you thinking?
These are two teams I'm not really familiar with. Something that I would love to see would be Atlanta just kind of like using all their skill position guys to their fullest abilities and going for like 35 points, hanging like 35 on Indianapolis.
I mean, yeah, Taylor Heineke is starting now instead of Desmond Ritter, so maybe that'll open it up a little bit.
Yeah, this could be the Heineke game. That guy's exciting to watch. It's going to be Christmas Eve. Like, why not have a game? I'm predicting Atlanta to drop. I'm going to say they're going to hang 35 on the Colts.
How much you think the Colts are putting up?
31. 35
Okay.
31 official score prediction for a game that I don't really care about.
Okay. So a big matchup, maybe in terms of playoff standings, but in Mr.
Yeah,
Gavin Lemke's mind, not big game. And I don't blame you a ton. I think in terms of the slate, there's a lot of other games. Like Texans Browns would be good if they had their starting quarterbacks, but they don't.
yeah.
Titans Seahawks maybe. I mean, yeah, but I am gonna take the Colts here. However, I like your spirit of a high scoring game for no reason, so I'm with that. We'll go 35-31 Colts. I'll go on the other side because Jonathan Taylor they're getting back, so he's
Yeah.
gonna be running all over the Falcons D. Let's go ahead and do our player flashback for today. Well, actually, you want to talk about the Lions real quick? You're on the show. You got to talk about the Lions. You know.
Man, I'll go ahead and talk about the Lions. The reason I don't really care about that Colts Falcons game is because it's Sunday at noon, or is it Saturday? Sunday
Sunday.
at noon, and a certain team out of Detroit plays Sunday at noon. They got a big divisional matchup. First time playing the Vikings this season. Uh, and I think we got it in the bag. Obviously, the Vikings are playing with a backup quarterback or third string quarterback. So we'll take that any week we can get it. We're a little bit banged up, but coming off like one of our best offensive performances of the season last week against Denver, I'm just looking to see more of that. I don't care how much the Vikings score. I think we're going to score more. We had Sam LaPorta with 3 touchdowns last week, Gibbs with 2. Those are rookies combining for 5 touchdowns. And Sam LaPorta's just had one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time. I know you talk about like wide receivers. Justin Jefferson had a great rookie season. Odell, Jalen Waddle, Puka Nakua's having an amazing season, but you can't overlook Sam LaPorta, especially what he's doing at the tight end position. Such a tough position to adapt to in the NFL. It's a really difficult position, especially for a rookie. And he's on pace right now to break Mike Ditka's single season receiving record for a rookie tight end, which
Yup.
just another thing that the Lions could hold over the Bears. That would be cool.
All right, you had me until
Um,
that part.
yeah, and we're also looking for 2 1,000-yard rushers and 2 1,000-yard receivers. We would be the first team ever to do that. So Amon-Ra's already eclipsed 1,000 yards. We're looking for Laporta to do it. And then Gibbs and Montgomery, they're like both around like 850 yards rushing. So yeah, just two like amazing tandems. It's hard to see how this team couldn't score 42. Uh, but this Vikings defense is legit. It has me a little bit worried. Brian Flores has done great things over there. Lions have kind of struggled against the blitz, and I know Brian Flores likes to mix it up, throw some disguises in there, throw some interesting blitz packages. And another thing that kind of worries me is that the Vikings have not given up a rush for over 20 yards this whole season.
Really?
It's a crazy stat, and you would think when they're blitzing as much as they do, someone's got to break one at some point. But no, not at all season. No rushes
Wow.
of over 20 yards, and
Wow.
I think Gibbs is going to do it this weekend.
I'm gonna go ahead and double down on that. I think Gibbs is gonna do it. I mean, Montgomery's got a good chance, but if anybody
Yeah,
is gonna do it, it's gonna be an explosive back, and that's Gibbs.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, inherently, you would like with their quick passing game. I know they like to do a lot of play action, the Lions do, but a lot of quick passes as well, a lot of underneaths to Amon Ra and some other guys there, some other speedsters there. So you would think that they would be able to counter a blitz pretty well. And you know what? I'm all for putting up 40 on the Vikings because if Bears have any shot of making it to the playoffs, we need the Vikings and the Packers to lose as many games as possible, and get our future head coach Ben Johnson some more stats. Put up 2,000-yard guys. Sam Laporta, yeah, add him to the list of amazing Iowa tight ends.
yeah,
If he breaks that Mike Ditka record, I mean, I can't be too mad. I love the guy. He was great at Iowa. Really underrated. Lions clearly didn't think so. They thought he was right where they took him was appropriate.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, speaking of young tight ends, you got Trey McBride from the Cardinals is having a great season. You've got Michael Mayer for the Raiders, who hasn't had an amazing season, but I liked him a lot in college. He's coming up. There's a lot of good young tight ends in the league who are having success right now. So it's good to see some bright future in some of those young guns. Even if you go to the Packers, you got Luke Musgrave, Cade Otton from the Bucks is playing all right. So a couple good upcoming young tight ends, but Sam Laporta is leading that pack by a
yeah.
mile.
And he's leading all tight ends in touchdown receptions. Honestly, he has an argument for being really the best tight end in the NFL this season. Travis Kelce kind of having, I don't want to say an off year, but he's not doing what we've seen him do in the last 4 or 5 years. Um, Hawkinson obviously had that injury. But yeah, I think LaPorta's in the conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Probably won't win it. Obviously, Nakua's going crazy, but throw him in the conversation. Talk about
Yeah,
him.
he deserves a vote. I would agree with that. Now let's go ahead and do our player flashback. I'm sure you're familiar with this guy. Legend in the 2010s, one of Drew Brees' favorite targets. None other than Mr. Marcus Colston. Played for the Saints his whole career, 2006, 2015. Drafted. Actually, do you know when he was drafted, Gavin?
2007?
He was drafted in 2006, but
Oh,
do you know what round he was drafted in?
I know he went to a small school. I'm gonna guess like sixth round.
Seventh round, 252nd pick at that, which
That's almost. Is that Mr. Irrelevant?
I think it's one pick away
Damn.
from. Let's see how many picks in the 2006 NFL Draft. Mr. Relevant was Kevin McMahon, wide receiver for the Oakland Raiders, and that was pick 255. So Marcus Colston was the fourth to last pick in that draft,
Wow.
and while he didn't make it to the Pro Bowl, I think that's a criminal lack of recognition for a guy who was second in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting, the rookie year, seventh rounder, 70, 1,008 stat line. Put up 1,200 the next year. Actually, he would have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, almost 8 and 9 1,000-yard seasons straight up. Except for 2008, he got hurt, only played 11 games, still had 760 yards. But 1,000, 1,200, 1,000, 1,000, 1,100, 1,100. He's 30 now, still putting up 900, 900. He's in there for the all-time receiving yards. I mean, he's got 9,759. Tack on a couple double-digit touchdown seasons, and I mean, like, what do you remember about Marcus Colston?
Well, Super Bowl champ for one thing. I also remember him just being really good as a rookie. You mentioned like 2,000-yard seasons right off the bat. Had 8 touchdowns in that rookie season, 11 touchdowns in that next season. I remember him being one of those dudes that like you don't know his name, but then you watch him on Red Zone, he's scoring like a few touchdowns. Like, who is this guy? Oh, he's out of where'd he go? Fordham, something like that. He went
Hofstra.
to Hofstra. He went to a
Yeah.
tiny little school. One of those guys. He's kind of like a Puka Nakua of this year. Obviously not to that level, but kind of one of those guys that took the league by storm and then was just Mr. Consistent his whole season. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Chris Godwin or something like that.
That's a very solid comparison. Yeah, sure-handed guy. He can get open on the deep route if you need him to, but for the most part, he's going to be Mr. Reliable over the middle. Career average of 13.7 yards a reception.
Yep.
Yeah, this guy was a stud. And I think just looking up Marcus Colston highlights, if you had to look up my top 5 most searched highlights, you're going to get like LaShawn McCoy, probably Justin Fields, some other like really relevant guys, and then maybe Marcus Colston will sneak in the 5 because, I mean, he was Mr. Consistent, like you said. So
Yeah.
shout out Marcus.
I also remember a big game. If you look up Marcus Colston's name on YouTube, they'll say that he rigged an NFL game because they were trying to do one of those kind of what do you call it? The laterals? Hook and
Yeah,
ladder. They're
yeah.
trying to do like a hook and ladder and he threw the ball forward and they say that he rigged the game. Whatever. What do
Yeah,
you do in those moments? I also remember him from those fantasy football pick me commercials. Those were hilarious. I remember Marcus Colston was in there.
let's see. I'm gonna try and see if I can find
It
these.
just speaks a little bit to like the era that he played in. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? With the Reebok jerseys.
absolutely. I'm gonna edit in some Marcus Colston highlights.
Yeah, he was doing
Post
the
podcast.
one with the jugs machine where I
Oh
think he
yeah,
caught
oh
one
yeah.
ball and then one ball and then caught a ball between the ball. Crazy
Those
stuff.
commercials were amazing.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's my childhood right
people
there.
think they're fake. Are you kidding me? Come on.
People think
Um,
those are fake? Come
yeah.
on.
before we head out of here, we got a few questions to answer. So if you want to start us off with this first question, I think this is really interesting. This is from a Leo from Iowa City. Well, really from Chicago, living in Iowa City. Would you rather have Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson as an NFL franchise?
That's interesting, man. I would love to say like pick your poison. Either of those guys, obviously, like in my opinion, top two wide receivers in the NFL right now. But this might be kind of a cold take right here, but I think I would go Tyreek Hill, and I would just use him differently. I don't know if you remember watching him at Oklahoma State, but he was more of a running back, and obviously with that speed, he's so hard to tackle. He's one of the strongest runners in the league too. People kind of don't really realize that he's 99 speed or whatever, but he's also really strong. His legs, he just keeps driving. I would probably mix him up. I would use him like a Debo Samuel type of player, how the Niners use him. Maybe put him in the backfield a little bit. I think you could just get more out of Tyreek Hill than Justin Jefferson. Now, obviously, that's all fictional. Realistically, I would take either one, and I'd be blessed to have him.
Yeah, I love that take because when Tyreek Hill was first breaking out in the Chiefs, they were using him in jet sweeps and like he was getting
Yeah,
rushing touchdowns and he was doing more returns and whatnot. I
yeah,
mean, he's
that's
great
what
in
I
the
mean.
open field, like a Debo Samuel type. Great run after the catch. He's not going to necessarily truck you, but he's a physical guy. I mean, a lot of the times when he
Yes.
goes down, he gives himself up because he doesn't want to get hurt.
Yeah,
But I love that take. I think that really the only thing here is like age, right? Because Tyreek Hill is
yeah,
about to be 29 or 30. Justin Jefferson's still in his third or fourth year in the league. And in terms of production, I mean, Justin Jefferson probably had him until this year. Tyreek might break 2,000. I agree with you, though. If you're just on a contending team, I'm taking Tyreek Hill because, yeah, you can't really cover Justin Jefferson on a route, but just the speed of Tyreek, you can do so much. You can't cover him, and you can run him the ball in the end around. You can do all the stuff that you were talking about, and
yeah,
man, you can do a lot with him. So I agree. I'm taking Tyreek. If you're rebuilding as a franchise, maybe you take Jefferson.
yeah. That's fair.
All right. So next question here. Eddie's asking top 5 current head coaches. I think this is really interesting. I think personally number one. I mean, I would say Belichick. If you go, I don't know. How do you want to do this? You want to do this by year? You want to go? You want to
Yeah, you want to
go
go?
just
I thought he
general?
meant right now.
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no.
all time?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. He didn't specify, so I would say maybe not all time. I think current head coaches, but are we doing give or take the last couple of years or just this year alone?
We could do whoever's coaching, active coaches, and kind of account for their whole career.
Yeah, sure, sure. So I mean, I would say Belichick you got to put in the top, but just how he's played as of recent without Brady,
Yeah,
I think I would put probably Andy Reid number
I was
one.
gonna say Andy Reid as well.
Um, I would honestly say Mike Tomlin too, but a guy who I'm going to put ahead of him, just because I think he's so underrated, is John Harbaugh, the Ravens.
Yep.
He's done both offense and defense. Me and my brother were talking about this the other day. I mean, he's an underrated guy. He should be a Hall of Fame coach. He's got his Super Bowl ring. He's looking for another this year. But just great leader. Ravens have always been competitive, kind of similar to the Steelers. They have had some losing records, but I mean, he won a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. Need I say more?
Well, Joe Flacco's elite.
When you
I
get him
think
to the
Joe
postseason,
Flacco
he
won a
is.
Super Bowl. I don't think Harbaugh won a Super Bowl. I don't think he was on the field. I think Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, when you get him to the
Respectively.
playoffs, he's great. Yeah, or I guess when he plays the Bears for whatever reason. Well, he did throw 3 picks, but um, I would say Harbaugh's probably in that top 3. Then maybe Mike Tomlin, and
Yeah, and then I
then
think after
Belichick.
that, we have to throw in a guy who's like a Shanahan or a McVay who's kind of younger, but they're obviously showing that they're one of the top 5 guys. I love what McVay's been doing with the Rams this year. I mean, these last 3 weeks they've looked unreal, especially offensively. So I would probably put that between Shanahan and McVay. Obviously, Shanahan, he's got kind of the playoff pedigree to go for it, but I guess McVay has that Super Bowl, so I don't know. It's kind of a toss up for me in that 5th spot between McVay and Shanahan if I wanted to throw a younger guy in there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd probably put McVay just because he has that ring. Shanahan has been to I think more playoffs, but he hasn't gotten it done. I mean that
Yeah.
Falcons, that was tough with Shanahan being the offense coordinator for that Falcons one. That was when the Patriots took him down. That was tough. And beyond that, I mean, I love Mike McDaniel. I think he's a great head coach.
Yep.
I think as much as it hurts me to say this, I don't know if I would put him next, but you do got to give Kevin O'Connell some credit, the Vikings guy. I mean, when he had Josh Dobbs, he was translating plays. I mean, that's just pure. That's all him. Similar thing with Kevin Stefanski, honestly, running successful football games, successful offenses without your quarterback, with your third or fourth string quarterbacks. Are you putting Mike McCarthy in your top 10?
Nah, man, he's fat.
Hell nah. Yeah. Hell nah.
No chance.
I'm not trying to get canceled, so I won't say it's because he's fat, but because he's a bad coach, then yeah, I completely agree. I mean, Sean Payton's playing for the Broncos. We kind of forgot about him. He's probably in that top 10 as well.
Yeah. I mean, he did just
Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll, man, 4-0 wearing a hat. I don't know if you saw
that. Really?
Yeah. In his career, he wore a hat 4 times in his career, and he's 4-0.
What a beast! I didn't. Wow, he's got to wear hats more often, and he's probably got a pretty good record, a pretty bad record when he's not chewing gum, I would say. So let's run this real quick. Let's say Andy Reid, number 1. Number 2, you got probably Mike Tomlin. Number 3, out of respect, we'll put Bill Belichick because he got so many rings. 4, maybe Harbaugh. 5, how about Tomlin? 6, Pete Carroll. 7, if you want to go McVay, you could do that. 8, we'll say no. Let's go, instead of McVay, let's go Sean Payton, and then we'll go McVay. 8, 9. I'm gonna put Mike McDaniel because he's just the GOAT.
Go ahead, yeah.
And at 10, you could say Sirianni. You could say Shanahan. I would say we talked about Shanahan for a little bit. Let's give it to Shanahan. Call it the list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another question here. Worst starting QB in the league, not counting backups.
Trying to think. I got to run through all 32. I think I'm going to go Fields.
And I'm going to think I'm going to beat your ass off camera.
I'm joking. I think I'm going to go with if you want me to be realistic, I was going to go the other Jones. I was going to go with Mac Jones, but yeah, either way you flip the coin.
Yeah,
those Jones boys over there.
Just not getting it done. Mac Jones got to be. If not, then probably Daniel Jones. Or Desmond Ridder really has not been good. I'm not going to take a dump on Bryce Young yet because he's his first year and he's playing behind a terrible team.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett might be up there, honestly.
Ridder managed the game a lot better than Mac Jones. They put Mac Jones in situations where all you had to do was, hit the 8-yard comeback route, just hit your dump off route, and then he throws it directly into the defender's chest. It was crazy watching Mac Jones. I think a couple weeks ago, they eventually benched him, which was the right move.
But at the same time, somehow Bailey Zappi is making even worse throws. He makes the ones that Mac Jones couldn't, but then he'll throw into triple. I've seen Bailey Zappi throw into triple coverage 5 times a game over the last couple weeks, and I'm just like, man, how do you have a job?
Well, he's confident.
Yeah, I guess so. Brett Favre type is Bailey Zappi. Nice comparison there. Yeah, we'll say Mac Jones. It's got to be it. Last question for today. This is a really interesting one. I like this. How many quarterbacks would you take over Gardner Minshew this season? And so let's do the same thing. You can't bring back. Well, okay, let's do the opposite. You can't bring back anybody who's injured. So right now, over the course of the season, how many quarterbacks can you take ahead of Gardner Minshew?
So I can't pick Burrow?
Nah, because he's been hurt. So whoever's standing currently.
So you want me to actually count? I mean, I guess I would take Goff over him.
Okay.
I would take Zach Wilson over him.
You would take Zach Wilson over Minshew?
I would take Zach Wilson over Minshew. I would take Will Levis over Minshew. I would take Sam Howell over Minshew. I would take Fields over Minshew. I would take Herbert's hurt now, but I would probably take Jordan Love over Minshew. I would take Russell Wilson over Minshew. I mean, there's a number of guys, probably 30 guys. I would take I know he doesn't start right now, but Jameis Winston I would take over most quarterbacks in the NFL, to be honest.
It's funny because you said you weren't super familiar with the Colts team. So let me remind you that Gardner Minshew, his team, is 8-6 right now. 9-6. No, that was after we picked him. 8-6, and as their starter, he's 6-4 record, and he's got 2,800 yards in 10 games, 63.3% completion percentage, 14 passing touchdowns, tack on rushing touchdowns. He's got another 3, and you got 8 interceptions, QB rating of 86.2. Does that change your mind at all? Do you think Zach Wilson is still better than him?
Yeah, man. You know what? Color me shocked. I'm surprised at how good a season Gardner Minshew's had. Didn't know that. Like I said, not a big Colts fan. I don't really follow the Colts. I wouldn't trust Gardner Minshew to like lead my team to the playoffs or anything. And if the Colts make it to the playoffs, like I'll eat my words.
Yeah,
I'll do
man. You
something
might have
crazy.
to. You might have to. You do something crazy. You'll do the one chip challenge if Gardner Minshew
I'll
takes
do
the
the
Colts to
one
the
chip
playoffs.
down.
You will?
Yeah.
We shaking on that right here?
If
Trust
the
me,
Colts make the
you don't
playoffs,
want to do it. You don't want to. Trust me, that's not the punishment you want to do. From experience, you do not want to eat the chip.
all right. Well, way to make the show entertaining, man. I probably would have done it if you hadn't said that.
For your own safety. I mean, I remember I did it and it was like terrible. And then the week after or the day after I did it, it was like local teen dies from eating hot chip. I was like, God, dodged a bullet there. All right, well, Gavin had to get out of here. He had to catch a train. To answer your question, Riley, about how many QBs I would take over Gardner Minshew this year, I will say, well, Gardner Minshew does have a good record. Probably isn't the main reason why the Colts are in the playoffs. Doesn't turn the ball over a ridiculous amount, but 14-8, he's not doing anything super crazy on offense. But he's been a good game manager. So here's who I'm taking over. I'm taking Lamar. I'm taking Jake Browning. I'm taking Tua, Josh Allen. Let's see. Wait, Lamar, Jake Browning, Tua, Josh Allen. Mahomes. Russell Wilson. I can't take Herbert. He's out. I'm taking Trevor Lawrence is an interesting one. We'll come back to that one. CJ Stroud, take him. Brock Purdy, taking him. Stafford, taking him. Geno Smith, I don't know. Jalen Hurts, I'm taking. Dak Prescott, I'm taking. Tommy Cutlets. Nah, I won't put him ahead. Jared Goff. I'll take Jordan Love. Take Justin Fields. Take Baker. And that's about it. So I would take 14 guys ahead of Minshew. Does that mean Minshew is a top 15 quarterback? Well, you can argue. Maybe I would take Sam Howell. Maybe. I'd probably take Trevor Lawrence. Who am I kidding? Gardner Minshew, top 15 QB this year? Really interesting. But I hope that answers your question, Riley. So thank you guys for listening and watching to this episode. Hope you enjoy it. If you want to see more of the video episodes with Gavin, we'll give us some feedback on the Instagram. I'll try to make it happen at school when we're back in the studio. And while we're away here at our own homes, we'd be happy to keep doing more Zoom episodes. So make sure to follow the Instagram, Onside Kick Show. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. Talk to you soon. Peace.